From Madhya Pradesh, Gwalior, the family negotiated for some weeks. Eventually they agreed. In the year 1506, in the small North Indian town of Behat, near Gwalior in present-day Madhya Pradesh, a son was born to a wealthy Hindu Brahman family. The father, Mukund Mishra, was a temple poet and a singer at the small Shiva temple of Behat. The mother's name has not been recorded. They named their son Ramtanu Pandey. He was an unusual child. He did not speak for the first 5 or 6 years of his life. He simply listened. He listened, especially, to his father's singing every morning at the temple. He listened to the deep stillness of the Hindustani classical raga his father practiced. He listened, the chronicles say, with such intensity that the family began to worry. They thought he might be deaf. They thought he might be mute. They could not understand why a child of a singing father would not himself sing. When he was 6, however, an itinerant Sufi musician named Muhammad Ghaus passed through the town. The Sufi heard the father singing in the temple. He stopped to listen. He noticed, sitting on the temple steps, the silent boy. He looked at the boy for a long time. He said to the father, "This child will be the greatest singer of his age, but he is not yours. He must come with me." The family negotiated for some weeks. Eventually they agreed. Ramtanu Pandey was sent, with Muhammad Ghaus accompanying him, to the great Hindustani classical music guru of the age, Swami Haridas, who lived in the forest of Vrindavan in present-day Uttar Pradesh. Haridas was a celibate Vaishnav saint. He was, in the late medieval North Indian musical tradition, perhaps the single greatest theoretician of raga who has ever lived. He composed in a form he himself had invented, the Dhrupad, a slow, weighty, austere style of Hindustani classical music that emphasized exact tonal precision, deep emotional restraint, and devotional content. Ramtanu lived in Swami Haridas' small forest ashram for around 15 years. He learned every raga of the Hindustani classical tradition. He learned the Dhrupad form in its purest version. He developed, the chronicles say, a vocal range of 3 full octaves, twice the range of any normal human male voice. He left Swami Haridas' ashram around the age of 21, with the Guru's blessing, as a fully trained Dhrupad master. He took the stage name Tansen, by which he would be known to history. Tansen's first major employment was at the court of Raja Ramchandra Singh Baghel of Rewa, a small Rajput kingdom in present-day eastern Madhya Pradesh. He served there for many years as court musician. He performed at every royal event. He composed new ragas. He trained young singers. He raised a family. The Rewa court, in the mid-16th century, became known across North India for the quality of its music. Eventually, the reputation of Tansen reached the Mughal court at Agra. The Mughal Emperor Akbar, by this point the most powerful ruler in northern India, sent a formal request to Raja Ramchandra. He asked, with appropriate diplomatic phrasing, that Tansen be sent to the Mughal court as a permanent court musician. Raja Ramchandra did not, in fact, want to give up Tansen. He resisted for some weeks. He wrote evasive letters. He suggested that perhaps a copy of Tansen's compositions might suffice. Akbar's response was firm. Eventually, in the year 1562, Raja Ramchandra had no choice. He gave Tansen leave to travel to Agra. He gave him expensive horses, jewels, and a small contingent of his own court musicians as a farewell. Tansen rode north, with his family, to enter the service of the Mughal emperor. Akbar's court was famous for its collection of brilliant figures. The emperor referred to 9 of them, jointly, as his Navratnas, his 9 jewels. The 9 jewels included the historian Abul Fazl, the poet Faizi, the chronicler Birbal who had become famous for his quick wit, the finance minister Raja Todar Mal, the general Man Singh I of Amber, the scholar Mullah Dupiaza, the priest-poet Abdul Rahim Khan I Khana, and the polymath philosopher Hakim Hukam. The 9th, on Tansen's arrival, became the singer himself. Tansen was given a senior court position. He was paid handsomely. He had quarters in the Agra fort. He performed for Akbar most evenings. He took a particular interest, the chronicles record, in expanding the Hindustani classical raga catalogue. He composed several new ragas himself, including Miyaki Todi, Miyaki Malhar, and Darbari Kannada, all of which are still in active performance today. The prefix Miya, meaning the master, was conferred on him by Akbar himself. Many of his compositions are still attributed under the name Miya Tansen. The most famous story about Tansen at Akbar's court is the legend of the Raga Deepak. According to the legend, which is found in multiple sources of varying historical reliability, a group of jealous court musicians, who resented Tansen's status, persuaded the emperor to demand that Tansen sing the Raga Deepak. The Raga Deepak, meaning the Raga of fire, was reputed, in the Hindustani classical tradition, to be so powerful that anyone who could sing it perfectly would be physically consumed by fire from within. The raga was, for this reason, almost never sung. Akbar, encouraged by the jealous courtiers, demanded that Tansen perform it. Tansen, the legend says, asked for a few weeks to prepare. He retreated to his private chambers. He invited his daughter Saraswati and his son Bilas, who were also accomplished singers, to learn, alongside him, the corresponding Raga Megh Malhar, the Raga of rain clouds. The plan was, he would sing Deepak. They, hidden in the next chamber, would sing Megh Malhar at the exact moment the fire began. The Megh Malhar, if performed perfectly, would summon rain clouds and prevent the fire from consuming him. The night of the performance came. Tansen sang the Raga Deepak in front of Akbar's full court. The chronicles say that as he reached the high middle octave, the oil lamps in the chamber began to flicker and then to flare. The chronicles further say that his own body began to grow hot. His skin began to redden. His daughter and son, hidden in the next chamber, began to sing the Raga Megh Malhar. Within minutes, the chronicles say, dark clouds gathered in the night sky over Agra. Heavy rain began to fall. The heat in Tansen's body subsided. He completed the performance. He was unharmed. The jealous courtiers were silent. Akbar, the legend says, knew exactly what had been attempted and forgave it without a word. Tansen served at Akbar's court for around 24 years. He performed nightly. He composed almost daily. He raised his children, 3 sons and a daughter, all of them gifted singers, at the Agra fort. He continued, all the while, to live and dress as a Hindu, though some sources suggest he had converted, formally, to Islam at some point in his middle years, to make his life at the Mughal court simpler. The conversion, if it happened, was nominal. He continued, in his Drupad compositions, to address Hindu deities, particularly Lord Shiva, whom he had first heard sung about in his father's small temple at Behat. He died in the year 1589, at Agra, at the age of about 83. His exact date of death is recorded by the Mughal chronicler Abul Fazl in the N-i-Kabri. Akbar himself attended Tansen's cremation, or In some accounts, his burial, depending on whether one accepts the conversion. The court mourned for many days. Akbar reportedly said, in mourning, that Tansen had been the second hand of the empire. Tansen's body, after death, was carried by his sons from Agra back to his hometown of Gwalior in present-day Madhya Pradesh. He had requested, in his old age, to be buried or cremated, depending on the source, near the tomb of his Sufi teacher Muhammad Ghaus, the man who had first identified him in childhood and brought him to Swami Haridas. Muhammad Ghaus's tomb was at the time being built as a major Mughal period mausoleum in Gwalior. Tansen was interred in a smaller adjacent grave. A small dome was eventually constructed over Tansen's grave. The complex, the Great Mughal tomb of Muhammad Ghaus and the smaller tomb of Tansen beside it, still stands. It is one of the major historical monuments of Gwalior. A small tamarind tree was planted, by tradition, next to Tansen's tomb. Hindustani classical music students, for the next 400 years, have made a small pilgrimage to the tamarind tree before major performances. They chew, the tradition says, a single leaf from the tree. The leaf is said to give the singer the touch, the precise tonal mastery, of Tansen himself. The tradition is still observed. The current tamarind tree is the descendant of the original. It has been replanted, gardeners say, 3 times across 4 centuries. Every Hindustani classical singer in India today, regardless of gharana, the lineage of teaching, regardless of religion, regardless of geographic region, will, in the course of a normal recital, perform at least one raga attributed to Tansen. Miyan ki Todi, Miyan ki Malhar, Darbari Kannada, Miyan ki Sarang. The compositions are not slow museum pieces. They are the living repertoire. Bismillah Khan played them on his Shehnai for 60 years. Pandit Bhimsen Joshi sang them at every concert. M.S. Subbulakshmi performed Darbari Kannada to packed halls. The Meher Gharana, founded by the early 20th century musician Alauddin Khan in central Madhya Pradesh, traces its lineage directly to Tansen through his daughter Saraswati. The Senia Gharana, founded by Tansen's son Bilas, traces directly to Tansen through Bilas. The 5 great gharanas of Indian classical music, Gwalior, Agra, Jaipur, Kirana, Patiala, all claim some descent from Tansen. The boy who would not speak for the first 6 years of his life, who was discovered by a wandering Sufi sitting silently on temple steps, who was trained in a forest ashram by a celibate Vaishnav, who served the most powerful Muslim emperor in Indian history while continuing to sing about Shiva, who is buried in Gwalior beside his Sufi spiritual father. That boy is, 450 years later, the source of nearly every raga still sung in North India. Tomorrow's story comes from another corner of India. Subscribe to walk with us through the folklore of every region, in your language.